Welcome back to Timothy's Journal, where the heart of this podcast is to encourage you and build you in your faith. Let's journey together as we look at different topics that will challenge and grow us in our walk with the Lord. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Timothy's Journal. I'm so excited for this episode. I know I say that every time, but I'm really excited for this episode.
He really is.
I've been having some conversations with some family, with some friends, and hearing some comments online as well, that this has been a topic that people are longing to know about. And frankly, I'm so excited because I think we're bringing some value, some serious insight of just putting peace to some concerns or worries that people might have. So I'm excited. So today, we're going to be diving into the three most critical relationships that every person needs in their life to be healthy and thriving. But before we get into that, I just want to shout out Ingrid. Ingrid reached out, said that she loved the episode, commented down below that she was going through all the episodes and found Timothy's Journal and was inspired by it. So we love you, Ingrid. Thank you so much for tuning in. I put you're enjoying this episode, and we'll connect some more.
And we got to shout out Cody, who also reached out, said that he really enjoyed just the back and forth dynamic and the topics and things that he wishes that he had when he was younger as well. So shout out to Cody. Love you, bro.
Love you, Cody. Also, during this episode, if something that you hear that you love, or if the Lord's speaking to you in a specific way, type it down below in the comments. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to shout you out next episode. So super excited. Mr. Matt, we're talking today about the three most critical relationships that every person needs.
That's right.
That's right.
Really, today we're focusing on kind of the first one.
Yes.
For this episode, because this is going to be, we're going to flesh this out over a couple different episodes because there's so much good content.
So much good stuff.
Over each one of them, really. But for this one today, I mean, really kind of the three are mentorship, friendship, and discipleship.
Come on.
And I mean, when you and I were talking, the analogy that I use whenever I think about this, just to kind of help you if you've read your Bible once or twice, is every person in their life needs a mentor or a Paul, somebody that is lived some years more than them, has some experience and some wisdom that they can pour into them. Every person needs a Barnabas, a friend, somebody who's doing life with them. The ride or dies, the people that are with them through thick and thin.
Right.
And then everybody needs a Timothy, somebody to disciple, somebody that they are pouring into, that they're sharing wisdom and knowledge with. And really there is a wonderful, beautiful success when you are finding yourself in every single one of these types of relationships where you are one to somebody else and then you are receiving that from someone else as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So today we're going to be going over mentorship, and our next episode dropping in May the 2nd is going to be talking about friendship and discipleship. So don't tune out before we get to that. It's going to be awesome. Things that we're talking about today is why mentorship? Why is it valuable? We're talking about where do we go for mentorship? What are some qualities that mentors should have to make sure that we are listening to the right voices? And a real big issue is, what is the danger of not having mentorship in your life? And I think that'll be a great question to answer.
I agree.
For everyone as they walk through their stage of life. And I think what's funny is, not funny, but very real, is every single person needs all three of these in their life. So if you're really young, or if you're a lot older in life, you'll still have these three areas, these three types of friendships that will be in your life.
Well, I think it's interesting to your point of, every age needs this. The younger you are, the easier it is to think that you have been disqualified or you're not ready for a certain type of those relationships. Like I would say I felt this way when I was, an early adult staff position in a church. I'm given the title and the role and the responsibility, and I'm like, man, I'm in no position to be mentoring somebody. I'm 20 years old. And so kind of breaking that stigma a little bit, and that there's always somebody that you can be pouring into, whether you're a new believer, whether you are young, whether you're old, whether you've been a Christian, there's always somebody that could learn and benefit from some of the wisdom of the life that God has allowed you to live, and you should never be afraid to pour out into those people.
100%. So in a great big summary, we're talking today about the three relationships that every single person needs to thrive and succeed and be healthy. That's mentorship, it's friendship, and it's discipleship. So we're super excited. Before we jump into mentorship, I think the overall arching theme is this scripture that I was reading here this morning. It says in Proverbs 2:6-8, it says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He holds victory in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones." And when I think about mentorship, friendship, and discipleship, it's this passing on. It's pouring into, being around, and pouring back down into someone else. And it's this passing on of wisdom, knowledge, understanding. But most importantly, it's from God that we get this.
That's good.
And so just an encouragement to you, if you don't have one of these three relationships in your life, God's with you, and his Holy Spirit is going to be empowering you to continue moving forward. So just an encouragement. You're doing great. But everything comes from the Lord.
It's good.
So, Matt, let's dive into it.
Love it.
Why mentorship?
Yeah. Well, something that I think is really cool about mentorship is when you have somebody that's pouring into your life like a mentor, and I think, and I don't want to get into this too much, but like even the word mentor, there's a stigma a little bit. Like when you have somebody in your life that's pouring into you, call it a mentor, call it whatever you want, but that's really what true mentorship is somebody who's pouring into you, somebody who is helping walk through life with you because they've walked through it already. And really that's what it is. And so for me, when I think about, well, why mentorship, when somebody is helping guide you through life, the types of people that I really learn from the most are people who have done the things that I want to do, and I can literally watch the path that they've taken, or they've done the things that I want to avoid, and they've come out on the other side. So it's kind of a little bit of like hey, if I'm a mentor, do as I say, not as I did. And it's this idea of like, hey, I've walked through this. Parenting is like this. I've walked through this. I know what happens when you ignore these things or you go this way instead of this way, and I want to help come alongside you so that you don't go through some of those hardships. So like for me, if I was to ask the question why mentorship, I'd be like, well, why wouldn't I want, call it a cheat code, call it like, why wouldn't I want advice on how to avoid pain and struggle if somebody's willing to offer it to me? You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. And it's very funny. I think in high school, the topic of mentorship was a big deal. You hear it in church. You hear it of how critical, how vital it is. Like it is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you want to be a leader and if you want to go far in life and have a big impact. And so, me, the small dreamer, I was like, yeah, I want to have a big impact. I want to change the world. And so I was like, I need a mentor. Yeah. And one thing I thought on my own was like, okay, I need one person pouring into my life, giving me the coverage for everything. Well, that was slightly out of hand because I was doing other things that whoever said mentor or oversight leader was over me had experience or advice on. For instance, I was running cross country and track, and I would consider my coach like a mentor figure. Yeah. Because he knew how to run. He was a great runner. He was, went to like pre-Olympic trials. Oh, wow. Didn't make it. He had the flu. Crazy story. But he
flu
still
game?
made it. Yeah, crazy. But just thinking like you can have different people in your life pouring into you for different areas. Yeah. So whatever your goals and dreams are, to have someone find somebody out in that area that's doing great things, like you said. Yeah. And then asking if they were like, hey, would you pass on some things that you learned? Yeah. Some good advice?
Yeah, well, I think, so I went to ministry school in Los Angeles, and I have so many great experiences from that. And that was a big thing that was a fundamental core of that program was people pouring into you. Yeah. And so, they had small groups where they would put us together with, there was a couple students, guys and girls together, and then there was like, a guy lead that was a second year in the program, and then a girl lead that was a second year in the program. And they were kind of like they were our small group leaders, but really the relationship was designed so that they would be mentor figures. And so when I was younger and I was in this program, like everything about that program pushed me towards, okay, this person is your mentor. This person is the person that's going to come alongside you and do this life with you. Sure. All fine and dandy, and the concept is great. But to what you just said, there was a little bit of a pressure of like, oh man, all right, I hope this guy has the answers to everything because there's a lot of weight riding on this guy being the guy. And I love him to this day. I have only good things to say about him. He was so great. But it was unfair of me to put that weight on him. I mean, I was 17 and he was 19, and I was a second year in the program, but he hadn't lived a lot of the stuff that I needed answers to. And so it's not fair for me to expect that he'll have everything figured out. And so you said something really key that I was going to say later, which is you don't have to have one perfect mentor. I would say it's actually really dangerous to try to seek that person, because you're either going to get let down a bunch, or you're going to have a lot of people who you want to pour into you feel like they've let you down because maybe they don't have the answers to every single little thing.
Sure. What would you say, Matt, to where is the best place to go to be more mentored?
Yeah. Well, I think when you look at even just the Bible and you see all the different beautiful examples of that leadership, mentorship, guide relationship, right? You think about Elijah and Elisha. And literally the Bible says that Elisha was blessed with a double portion because he simply refused to leave Elijah's side until the day he was ascended into heaven. And I think that there's power there in multiple things, but even just that, like, I'm not leaving you because you've done so much good. I'm not leaving until you're up in heaven. And he received a double portion because of it. I think about, in Titus 2, it's giving qualifications for elders, and it says, hey, like, if you're an elder, which is, leader in the church, like, you need to be pouring into young men, and you need to be. And so to answer your question, where do you go? Well, look at what the Bible shows as good examples. Okay, people who have lived godly lives, they're still going towards Jesus, just like you're going towards Jesus, but they're farther down the path. They've lived some years. Okay, so does every mentor have to be old? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's going to be hard to get mentored by somebody who, if I'm 20 and I just graduated high school, it's hard for me to get mentored by somebody who just started high school. Like, right? So there is a little bit of a experience-based, not an age-based, but an experience-based level of understanding to say, okay, so-and-so has walked through this. They've started the business that I want to start. They've had the relationship I want to have. They have kids like I want to have. So I'm going to talk to them. Obviously, they need to be God-fearing. Obviously, they need to keep Jesus at the center.
That'd be good.
I would say look in the church, because the church usually has a lot of good people that they are ready to help you if they knew that you wanted their help. And so I know so many people that would be like, at a moment's notice, if I were to go to them and say, hey, I'm really struggling in this area, I'm wondering if you and I could sit down and have coffee. I could list off like 20 people that would say yes immediately, even if it was just for that one conversation.
Okay. One thing I would run into, personally myself, but then I'd hear stories about people, and some dear friends of mine, and they'd be like, man, I'm looking for some mentorship. And they'd go up and they'd like find somebody at the church or the something pastor, and specifically to grow in their faith. And they'd be like, hey, I need mentorship. Would you mentor me? And then I'd hear the flip side of like people be like, I want to mentor you. And like come like I don't really know this person. They'd be like, I want to mentor you.
Yeah.
And like go at them.
Yeah.
And I've just found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
I've just found best strategies for building that bridge.
Yeah.
Having that conversation is probably not walking directly up to them and saying, would you mentor me? And it's like this contract, and I get all nervous, or like no, or yes, or I don't know, or even having someone come up to you and be like, you're gonna be mentored by me.
Yep. No, there's a lot of pressure. Well, as somebody who, in a church staff position, we have a college here at the church, and so I've literally walked this out, where there were people. I saw both sides of it, where I thought, man, I really want to pour into this person. And thankfully, because of my experiences, I chose not to go up to them and be like, today is the day I'm your new mentor. Like, I didn't do it that way. But
like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I am your mentor. No, but I did have somebody come up to me and they basically were like, I want you to mentor me. And I was like, okay. And they kind of, like, it was so funny, and this is why, again, even just that word mentor, there's a little bit of a stigma where you just got to be careful, because it was legitimately like I watched this person come up to me because he was told, find a mentor, because mentors are important, which they are. But there wasn't anything else after that. It was, all right, now go find a mentor. And he came up to the first person he thought of, and he said, all right, can you be my mentor? And I was like, all right. And then he didn't have anything else. And it was almost like he thought I knew what to say of like, all right, now you're my mentor, so you've got a 10-point bulleted plan, right? And I'm like, no. And ultimately we became friends because we were a lot more similar in life than where he thought initially. But like, you've got to know and have a specific ask. Yeah. And so instead of saying, hey, will you be my mentor? Like my encouragement is if you like, because you're looking for people who are skilled experts in specific areas, if you want to be a great father, go to the best father that you know, even if it's your own father, but maybe there's somebody in the church and you're like, man, I love the relationship that guy has with his adult kids. And I've heard stories of what a great dad he was. Go up to that guy and say, hey, you know, my wife and I have been thinking about having kids recently, and I really want to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can do to be a good father. You have set such a good example, and I would love to just sit down with you and hear some tips. Right. You've set expectation. You have clearly communicated what you're trying to receive, and they now have way better of a chance to help you succeed because they know what you're actually asking for.
Absolutely. I mean, if someone had asked me that question, I'd be like, so what do you need mentored in?
Right.
What would you like help in?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's a blanket statement. That's kind of hard to go off of.
Well, and then if you as the mentor ask that question, sometimes people will go, oh, you don't know what it means to be a mentor because you're asking. And then they think that they've got to find somebody who has it all figured out, right? So when you assume all these different things, oh, I assume that you know what I want, or I assume that you know what you want, like instead of dealing with that, just be clear and ask, hey, and be okay if somebody that you look up to asks you clarifying questions, because that just means that they're going to give you really good advice because they know exactly what they're speaking to.
Yep. And I would say, as in all of our examples, they've been in a Christian setting.
Yeah.
Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
If you disagree or agree.
Yeah.
But for me, I found that it is okay if you want to find somebody who's farther along down the road in something that is not a Christian based.
Wholeheartedly
So
agree.
for instance,
Business,
say I want to start up my own Subway shop. Shout out to Subway.
The fact that you couldn't even say it tells you that you shouldn't have chosen Subway.
No, I said Subway correctly. I said shout out wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Subway's gross. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Firehouse Subs.
That's good too. Meatballs all the way. Okay. Anyway, Subway. Say I want to start a Subway.
Yeah.
I can go talk to a store manager.
You could.
And they could be not a Christian. They could be a terrible person.
Yeah.
But they know how to run a Subway.
It's true.
And if that's the case, I can take them to coffee, and I'm like, or just hang out at their store and be like, how do you run this?
Yep.
What's good strategies that helps your store be successful?
Yep.
Best advice: do not ask help from someone who's not doing a great job on their own. That would be a really good piece
so maybe
of
don't
advice.
walk into the rundown Subway.
Yeah.
It's like, the home,
Or just go to Firehouse Subs.
Exactly.
Just pivot that whole
Any
story.
Firehouse Subs is better than some. No, just kidding.
That's crazy. No. This is good. Okay, down below, Firehouse Subs or Subway? You let us know. We'll tally it up. I'm betting Subway.
Really? Because I actually recently talked with some people about ranking sub shops. This has nothing to do with mentorship.
This is so great.
Long story short, of the 4 that we listed, which was Subway, Jersey Mike's, Jimmy John's, and Firehouse,
Those are good.
Subway got last in 3 out of the 3 polls that all 3 people.
Okay.
Just saying. So.
Well, we'll have to hear what our listeners think.
That's right.
Yep, super excited.
But anyways, mentorship. No, I agree wholeheartedly. It's okay. If it's not, like if your specific thing that you're wanting to grow in is business, your goal isn't, like, obviously if you know somebody that's a Christian that's also a business owner, that's the win-win. But like, I'm not going to a pastor to talk about how to run a Fortune 500 company. In the same way, I'm not going to Bill Gates and asking him how to best shepherd a flock as a pastor. It's not a disrespect to one versus the other. It's just, I've seen you do the thing I'm wanting to do better than anybody else that I know. So therefore, I'm asking you and only you for this specific thing.
Yeah. A strategy that I have seen been walked out really well in my own life, but also like in others, it's been really good because I think nowadays culture, there's a bit of a commitment phobia to commit to something. So when I say mentor me, that's a big like, oh, okay, another responsibility that I have to be committed to.
Yep.
And so just for people out there looking for that, I would encourage everyone, and this is the way I've gone about it, honestly, and seen great success. It's like, sweet, win. And my friends as well, I encourage them to do the same.
Yeah.
It's like, just find whoever you want to learn from and try to get a one-on-one, ask great questions.
Yeah.
Don't make it a commitment thing. Just ask every time. Be like, awesome. Hey, can we do this in another 2 weeks? Let's go to this coffee shop or something like that.
Yeah.
Just take it 1 week at a time.
Right.
Because you'll move in seasons where you'll need this advice at this time. You'll need this advice at that time.
Yep.
And at some point, maybe that person they have spent their time with you.
Yep.
And they passed on what they needed to.
Right.
And so this commitment idea is like, it's tough.
It is. Well, and it kind of lends itself to another thing that I definitely wanted to say today at some point, which is that, like, if you're in a season where maybe, you've had somebody that poured into you in a specific area and you've gotten that, you've soaked it up, and you're in this kind of in-between season where there's not really, like, it's not a sin to not have a mentor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not, and you got to get rid of this idea that if you don't have a mentor, you're failing.
Yes.
Mentorship is not it's a checked box of, okay, successful life or failure life. Mentorship is something that is meant to come alongside and help you. Yep. But this idea of, oh man, like this person that I was talking to that was pouring into me, they're not anymore. And so therefore I'm not doing good in life anymore.
Yeah,
you got to get rid of that.
Ground.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm unsafe.
Right.
Well, like we said from the start, right? Okay. Proverbs 2. For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding.
Yep.
And it is from Jesus that we learn and understand.
Right.
But he's also blessed others who have been farther along in life or even at a younger age to have great wisdom.
Yeah.
And we can learn from them as well.
Yeah.
And so if you're in the type of spot where you don't feel like you have access to anyone to be a mentor or to pour into your life, that's okay. The Lord is with you. The most important relationship, technically, out of all three of these, is the fourth one, and that is Jesus, 100%. But Matt, tell me this. What are some of the harms of not having a mentor in your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the biggest thing is pride. I think when you say to yourself, no, I got this. No, I know what I need to do. I've got it figured out, and if I don't have it figured out, me and me alone will figure out where to go from here. That's a lot of pride to say, I don't need help. I don't need anything that I can't myself give to myself. And you really run the risk of turning into somebody who either just shies away from receiving help, and which is, I would say, harmful to you. But number two, you really run the risk of this arrogance almost of, I don't need help because I'm my own help and I've got it figured out. And then when you're struggling, there's an inability to acknowledge that you're struggling, and then you're not receiving the help that you needed the whole time because you're unwilling to look outside of yourself. Yeah. So I would say one of the biggest issues with not wanting any help, call it mentorship, call it leader, call it whatever, is pride. What about you?
That's really funny because I actually would say something on the total opposite side.
Okay.
I would say mentorship is a big deal because to have someone believing in you. And because there's that insecurity or uncertainty. So, if you want to start your own business or if you want to grow in your spiritual life or anything, to have someone just believe in you, calling out the identity that God sees in you, calling out the opportunity and the gifts that you have, or someone to when you fail, be like, hey, get up. You're okay. Yeah. You'll be fine. Yeah. So for me in my life, I've always looked for someone to believe in me because I'm my worst critic. And I probably on the outside come off very confident, but most of it's confidence in God. Yeah. But then second is I'm honestly, just doing the best that I can. Yeah. Because deep down, I'm not quite sure. Yeah. And Jesus wants to give us such confidence in us because he has blessed us. He has been with us. Yeah. But that's not to say that we can't learn from other people.
Well, and I think you saying what you said, contrasting what I said, it is a great example that because we are all so different, it doesn't matter what type of personality you have. There's a good reason that you probably should have somebody in your corner.
Right.
Whether it's because, you're somebody who struggles with feeling like you're not worth the help or feeling like you don't have somebody to believe in you, or you're on the other flip side of, well, I don't need help and I've got it all figured out. There's reasons for both of those situations as to why you still should have people in your corner. And I would even go as far to say, in general, like, whether you're somebody who maybe you struggle more on the pride side or you struggle more on the self-worth side of like not feeling like you're worth somebody believing in you, my question to you is your ability to lean on somebody like a mentor or a guide, I think directly reflects your ability and your desire to lean on Jesus.
So good.
And so I think that if you are unwilling to lean on a mentor, whether it's because you don't think you need them or you don't think you're worthy of them, you'll say those same things when Jesus is trying to help you. Well, I don't need Jesus. I don't need his words. I've got it figured out. Or I'm not worthy of what Jesus has to give me. Yeah. And so I think it's a beautiful reflection that helps show us things in our life with other people that directly correlate to our relationship with Jesus and how we are engaging in that relationship.
The last harm, I would say, piggybacking on what you were saying, of not having a mentor in your life is, or someone in your life that's in your corner, is when you have someone in your life, they want to know what's going on in your life. Yeah. And so if you don't have someone that you're sharing life with, the dreams of your heart, the plans, the excitement, the thoughts that you're having of just like, hey, I'm dreaming about this. Hey, I was thinking about that. Oh, I really learned this recently.
Yeah.
When you don't have that, you don't have an area for you to vocalize those things. So you might not even be able to reflect and understand and realize what your perspective is on something.
Yeah.
For instance, it will bring that pride to the table.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this because I'm so great. It's like, well, you just told someone that you're so great and now you realize it because you said it. So it brings things to the surface, whether that's fears, pride, insecurities, bad thinking, or just a bad game plan. If you're like, I'm thinking about selling everything and I'm going to move to Cuba and we're going to Cuba.
Wow.
It's like, okay, talk to me about that, man. But you're in your own head.
Right.
It sounds totally logical.
Right.
Cuba,
Well, for the same reason, it's like, whenever I prep sermons or I'm writing stuff down, I tell people that want to, sermon prep, like always take the thought that you just wrote down and say it out loud, because sometimes saying it out loud, you're like, oh, wow, that does not sound the way that I thought it sounded in my head. And so in this context, when you verbalize an idea to somebody who has some experience, they can tell you, oh, yeah, that is a really good idea, and validate it. Or they can say, I see where you're coming from. Let me offer this as well, so that you have multiple things to consider so that you can make the best decision possible.
100%. Hey, last thing we're going to be talking about here today is what are some qualifications, some do's and don'ts for mentors that we're looking for.
It's good.
Or that we might have.
Yeah. Well, I was looking up kind of just the definition of the word mentor the other day, and I didn't write it down, but what I remember is that it was the word trusted stood out to me, that it's somebody that you've got to trust. It's really hard to have somebody that's pouring into you if you don't trust them. And so, okay, well, how do I know if I can trust them? Do I have to get to know them first? Yeah. And so maybe don't have somebody that you don't know at all or anything about them be your mentor, or somebody that you're having poured into them. Like, going back to your Subway shop analogy, if I just meet somebody off the street and I'm like, yeah, he looks like maybe he could help me run a Subway, and I don't actually know anything about him, not a wise person. Like, oh yeah, this guy might, I want this person, and so I hope he's got the answers that I'm looking for, is a bad way to go about that.
So trusted, but also qualified.
Exactly. Trusted and qualified. And I would say, like, if you're somebody who is trying to be a mentor, because we're talking to both today, getting mentors, but even just being a mentor.
Yep.
Like, if you've hit a place where you're you think you're ready to help mentor others or pour into others, which I would say all of us are in some context, a great indicator of that is like, okay, there's never a moment where you've arrived. And what I mean by that is if you're like, yep, I'm a mentor now, and I no longer need to be mentored because it's now my turn to pass along, you're not ready to mentor somebody.
Well, you just kicked out one of the 3 pivotal relationships
Exactly.
that you need in your life.
Exactly.
You need all 3 at all time.
Yeah.
But number 1, you need the 4th, which is Jesus.
Right. And I know, unfortunately, too many people, not that I know personally, but, some that I've interacted with in life, some I see, on just social media platforms, and it's evident that they feel as though they've arrived. And they have passed the point of needing to get poured into, and they are now in a stage of life where all they do is pour into other people, and that is where that pride creeps in. And so, like, for me, like, working with kids and youth, in their eyes, I've arrived. And and I tell them often, like I literally told them this in a sermon I did last Tuesday. I was like, I do not want you to take everything that I've said, trust it wholeheartedly, and never once assume that there might be something that I got wrong. And it was in a different context, but really the heart of that is I'm not perfect. I have not got it all figured out. And yes, I can help you with certain things, but the minute that I think that I've got it all figured out, I think is the minute that disqualifies me from being a mentor. And so you can't ever feel like you've arrived. Is I would say for the mentor that wants to pour into people, but for somebody that's looking, if you see that level of pride in somebody, maybe you should look for someone else.
Yeah, that's very good. I think one of a great advice I'd give to anyone, and I would tell myself about 4 or 5 years ago, is when you're looking for someone to mentor you in your life, when you're looking for someone to pour into you, bring it to prayer.
Yeah, it's really good.
And have the Lord direct your steps, because there have been people that, like, there was a youth pastor growing up that I was like brokenhearted, did not want to like spend time with me and did not want to like pour into my life. I was so brokenhearted. But then again, like we got coffee, it was happening, but it wasn't as frequent as I thought it would or anything like that. And I also feel like there's a portion of it that the Lord was protecting me to say, this person might not have been the best person to pass on wisdom for you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing against them. It's just for me where I was going.
Yep.
The Holy Spirit was navigating to help direct me.
Yeah.
And also in those seasons, really special story is I was crying out, praying all often. And Lord, bring a mentor in my life, because I realized I was feeling this burden that I need to be poured into, because I thought there was, I wanted to grow and do something special. And so I was praying for this mentorship. And the Lord really kind of laid it on me, and he said, I'm your mentor. And just coming back to Proverbs 2, it says, for the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding, and he holds victory in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless, for he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones.
That's good.
And in that, he is a shield to those. So bringing it to prayer protects you from people that maybe they're great people, but for you, it would lead you wrong. And also, if the Lord is keeping maybe mentors out of your life, maybe he's drawing you to a place of, are you seeking Jesus first? Are you bringing your problems, your hearts, your desires, your dreams, your issues to Jesus first? Because if you don't, you're bringing a dependency upon a carnal human being rather than the eternal, infinite, all-knowledgeable, perfect wisdom of good God.
It's good.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it.
That would be a big qualification. Bring it to prayer. You talked about trusted. I would add to that safe. You feel safe. You build that relationship.
Yeah.
And then that they're qualified to bring a value to your life.
Yeah.
Is very good.
I love it.
Absolutely. Hey, guys. So today we talked about mentorship. We talked about the 3 relationships that are very pivotal for everyone to be successful, healthy, and a thriving individual in life. And that is mentorship, a little bit of friendship. You sprinkle in some discipleship there at the end. And so get ready. Episode 35. No, this is 35. 36. Episode 36, May 2nd, we're going to be releasing the friendship and discipleship episode. So be ready for that. I'm super excited. Matt, what should people be doing in the meantime? They're ready for this. They've been inspired by this episode.
Yeah.
What's a good step for someone?
I would say the first thing is if you were stirred at all by the idea of mentorship, instead of defaulting to, all right, I got to figure out, who's going to be my mentor. I would encourage you to take it in prayer and say, Lord, what is one area of my life that you're showing me that I need to work on? And based off of whatever that area is, because it could be different for all of us, I think from there going, okay, my area is I really need to work on my humility. I would just say for the next couple of weeks, really be attentive to the people in your life and say, okay, man, I'm noticing humility in other people, and look for somebody that displays that well. I would say in that context, it needs to be somebody who's displaying Christ-like humility. And then, once you've kind of confirmed, like, all right, I've got a good relationship with this person, they display humility the way that I want to display it in my own life, then go up to them and have that simple ask, like we talked about. Hey, this is something that I'm walking through. Would you be willing to give me some tips on this? Can we go to coffee for an hour and let it be that one thing? If it turns into something consistent, great. If not, you got some really good wisdom on humility one time from somebody, and that's what I would say.
That's good. Last thing, I totally forgot about this. Another great piece of advice of some qualifications for a mentor.
Yeah.
They should have an interest in your life.
It's good.
If they don't care about what's going on, if they don't care to see you succeed,
Yep.
that is not someone you want to be
really
getting
good.
some info for.
Really good.
Hey guys, I pray this blessed you today. I pray this got you super filled up with the Spirit, encouraged you, uplifted you, challenged you a little bit for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Made you laugh. Subway, House of Subs. Firehouse Subs. Make sure you comment down below which one you think is better, because I'm banking on Subway.
It's not going to be Subway.
Yes, 100%. So, hey, love you guys. We'll see you guys next month, May 2nd. Thanks so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you. It would mean so much if you would like and subscribe to this podcast to help it reach even more people, and comment down below on what topic you'd like to hear next.